What is up, Hawk fans? I wanted to discuss the recent commitments in Iowa basketball. Sorry, guys, I could not react to this immediately. Been pretty busy the last couple of days, but Iowa has seen, specifically yesterday, and I'm going to keep this video short. I'm recording this kind of late at night. Iowa has seen a bereavement bevy of commitments. I believe specifically yesterday, it was basically one after the other. And we did get some news as well about somebody entering into the transfer portal literally after I had just made a post stating on Facebook stating that this guy was going to be on the roster. I also am going to discuss football too, just because I don't know when I'm going to be able to do a video. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a video reacting immediately to the next big piece of news. But let's just start here. So Iowa received probably the biggest news. They received a commitment from 6'8", 230-pound Cam Minyawu. I think this was the biggest name on the board from Drake. Of course, coach's alma mater from last year. And he's given a 4-star grade by 247 Sports. And he's got good size at 6'8". I almost literally forgot Iowa's new head coach's name, Ben McCollum. I had to pause it real quick. He's got good size, and like I said, I think this was probably the biggest name to come down the pipeline. I'm pulling up Drake's stats from last year. That way we can review that. And all these guys pretty much visited Iowa at the same time. I don't think that was happenstance or by accident. This has pretty much gone sequentially as everybody expected. I wasn't willing to commit because I knew that some of these players would have some other suitors as well. But I knew it was above I would even say a 60% chance that these guys were all going to land at Iowa. Especially considering what we saw from Bennett Sturts, who, by the way, I also need to give this piece of information. Bennett Sturts originally had announced his intention to play for the University of Iowa, but he was going to test the NBA Combine and the NBA draft process with the intention of playing at Iowa. But he made the announcement that he is going to forego that, and he will be playing at Iowa next year for sure under Ben McCollum. I'm not surprised by this. It sounded like he was leaning in this direction anyways. I think the draft process can be a good process. I am kind of surprised, because I think it can help with development. But if he was pretty much set, it can go both ways. I mean, if his mind was set, I don't see on returning to Iowa, I don't see what the harm would be in going through the process, getting feedback. Not that he can't get feedback otherwise. But we saw former Iowa players do it under Fran McCaffery. Ultimately, it's his choice. I would lean towards it being a better decision to go through the process and compete, maybe do some workouts behind the scenes with some other high-level talent, rub shoulders with some people. I think it's just a competitive environment that would help Bennett Sturts. But as an Iowa fan, I'm happy because it's like, now there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. He's going to be returning to Iowa. If he went through the process, even if I think that that's what would have been best for him, there would be the possibility that he gets amazing feedback and he decides to stay in the NBA draft. I think the biggest thing that Bennett Sturts is facing is probably the fact that he played at Drake, which isn't the end all be all. We've seen plenty of guys that played at smaller schools get drafted high, but he only did it for 1 year. He's a relatively unknown name outside of that. And even though they played, and I detailed this, Drake's record against Power 4 teams this past year, and he played great in all those games, it's different than being on Iowa and playing multiple, 10 plus games against Power 4 level competition. So anyways, that's the news on that. But going back to the transfers, Iowa received a commitment from Cam Manyawu, and like I said, and by the way, guys, if I botch it, please don't be the person in the. I cannot stand seeing these comments where people are like, his name is Cam, so and so, or his name. I had one guy comment to me that he probably would have subscribed to the channel if I pronounced a name correctly. To me, I'm not going to make this video too much about that, but that name pronunciation is not the end all be all. I am not Chad Leistico. I'm not Rob Ho. Okay. I am a fan. And I'm giving basketball and sports analysis. I'm not reporting. Sometimes I report, but that's not my main thing regarding Iowa sports. So anyways, I digress. And then I believe actually Cale Combs, shooting guard, had actually point guard, shooting guard, combo guard, 6'4", 190 pounds. I believe he had actually committed before Cam did, but we saw those two commit. And then, Isaiah Howard as well, 6'5", 200 pound shooting guard. So all these guys have Big Ten frames, Big Ten size. And I think it's a step in the right direction. The other big name on the board is Tavion Banks, the guard. Iowa, that would probably be the biggest name for Iowa to land outside of Bennett Sturts. I don't see why that won't happen, but I guarantee that he's got more suitors than all these other guys that have committed. So Cam Manyawu averaged 7.1 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, and he shot 49% from the free throw line, which is not great, 57.8% from the field, and he averaged 0.7 blocks per game. So he's a rim runner, he's a screener, a rim runner, and an athlete, one of those guys. And then Isaiah Howard, by the way, Cam averaged 18.8 minutes per game last year. All these guys are young. I think all these guys have 2 years of eligibility remaining. Isaiah Howard played 15.2 minutes per game. He averaged 4.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, and he shot 51% from the field, 80% from the free throw line, and 20% from three. Isaiah Howard did. No, that was Cale Combs. Excuse me. I think I mixed both those guys. Isaiah Howard averaged 4.5 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, shot 43.5%, 44.8% from the free throw line. The other one was field goal percentage, and 31.1% from three. So all these guys have some areas that they can improve, obviously, but they play hard. Ben McCollum thinks that they can play at the Big Ten level, and I'm going to trust his insight. And, at the end of the day, he has to fill out the roster, and that is that. Like I said, probably the biggest name still on the board is Tavion Banks. I think Mitch Muscari is also it says he's a senior here, but it says Tavion Banks, not to be confused with Iowa's running back. It says he's a junior, 6'7". That would be a big get for Iowa. And Ben McCollum, he's got to nail that down. Let me pull up his name here, make sure he hasn't committed elsewhere. But he did enter the transfer portal, and 1 day ago, so we'll see what happens with that. Fairly recent. Sadao Traore did announce that he's going to enter the transfer portal. I was kind of bummed to see that. I think he would have done. I think he probably would have been even better in Ben McCollum's system. I was a little bit surprised to see him wait as long as he did, only to hit the transfer portal. We'll see. I don't know if he left because Ben McCollum had a candid conversation with him and saying that he probably didn't have a roster spot, and Ben was moving on from him. Maybe he wasn't feeling appreciated. Maybe he wanted to just test the waters to see what he could get. He probably could get a little bit more than what he got last year, leaving Manhattan. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. I think he would have been an excellent holdover piece. At this point, Iowa's got Cooper Koch. They got Cam Menyawu. They might get Tavion Banks. So the forward position is kind of filling up for Iowa. But we'll see. We'll see. Isaiah Johnson-Arrigu is still on the roster. Ultimately, it's up to Ben McCollum how he wants to go about this. He might think that he can land somebody better than Sadao Traore. He's a little bit advantageous in getting into the transfer portal. But to me, I think that him, Chris Taggio, Isaiah Johnson-Arrigu, Cooper were all perfect guys to be held over and guys that could develop in his system. But then again, those were Fran McCaffrey guys. They may not fit what Ben McCollum is looking to do, whereas a guy like Cooper can fit in almost any scheme because of how good of a shooter he is. There's also Price Sanford that's still out there. Josh Dix technically is still out there. There's some people that's saying it's coming down to Iowa and Kansas for him. I know there's some of you guys who comment in my comment section saying good riddance to him. He wasn't a closer. He didn't have a killer instinct. And, I think all of those are fair criticisms. But at the end of the day, you still need talent on the roster. And it's going to be hard for Iowa to land the sort of talent that Josh Dix has because they don't have an Iowa connection like Josh Dix has with Iowa. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, what I'm saying is this is up to Ben McCollum. I'm going to trust him in his roster construction. Just for me personally, though, I think Sadao Traore would have worked great in Ben McCollum's system, especially being more defensive-minded with room to grow on the offensive side. But more to come on that, guys. I want to keep this video short. Last thing, we saw two guys in football decide to hit the transfer portals, kind of some big names. John Nestor and most recently tight end Gavin Hoffman. Both guys very surprising, although nothing is surprising anymore. Gavin Hoffman was one of the highest rated guys that's been landed at the tight end position. He was only at Iowa for one season. He mentioned how he loved Iowa's developmental mindset and he wanted to be developed, so on and so on. I don't listen to anything these players say anymore. With the graduation of Luke Lachey, there was more room for him. And especially with, Zach Ortworth and some of the other guys that are the tight ends for Iowa, there would be a pathway for him to get onto the field either in spot duty this year or next year. But, we don't always know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe he wasn't as good as advertised. Addison Ostrenga, of course, is the other tight end. Maybe he was not as good as advertised. Maybe there were some names that were ahead of him. We were hearing some good things about Michael Burt, the home state of Nebraska tight end. And I said that he probably would initially be more successful at Iowa because he came from a more blocking situated offense. And also, maybe this is foreshadowing things to come as far as Tim Lester's offense goes. Maybe the tight end is not going to be utilized as much, and that's why Gavin Hoffman left. I mean, there's really a litany of reasons, but either way, I mean, it's really hard for Iowa to land guys as highly recruited as Gavin Hoffman is. And, we'll see where he lands. I mean, I hope he returns back to Iowa. Same with John Nestor. Both those guys are talented. But we'll see. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll have more for you guys. Probably this weekend I'll make something, but I just wanted to put something out there and talk about these things. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment. You guys know the drill. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. And facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you, Hawk fans. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.